All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to talk about how to upgrade our most important tool, our own minds. We're going to build a toolkit for thinking that's clearer, sharper, and way more effective. So, let's get to it.
You know that feeling, right? We've all been there. That sinking in your stomach when you just know you've made the wrong call. It feels terrible, but it's a totally universal experience. And it turns out there's a really good reason why it happens to all of us.
See, the thing is, our brains are basically running on ancient software. They evolved to make split-second judgments to, survive. These mental shortcuts are super efficient for that, but in the complex world we live in now, yeah, they can seriously trip us up and lead straight to those decisions we wish we could take back.
But here's the good news, and it's really good news. We are not stuck with our brain's default settings. We can actually learn to spot these shortcuts and build new, better mental habits. And that's exactly what we're going to walk through right now.
Okay, so first things first on this journey, we have to learn how to gather information the right way. Before you can solve any problem, you have to see it clearly. And that means you need to look at it through two very different lenses. The first lens is what we call quantitative. Think of this as the what. It's the hard data, the numbers, the stats, all the stuff that shows us patterns and gives us a sense of scale. The second lens is qualitative. This is the why. These are the stories, the interviews, the context that explains the human side of things, hiding behind all those numbers. And you can see it right here. It's like two different worlds. On one side, you've got the spreadsheets, the charts, the cold, hard facts. And on the other, you have real human conversations, which is where you find out about motivations and feelings. To get the full picture, you absolutely need both. One without the other is like trying to see with one eye closed.
So here's the key. You've got to know which tool to pull out of the toolkit. Are you trying to measure how something's performing or test an idea? That's when you grab your quantitative tools. But if you're trying to figure out why people are behaving a certain way, or you need to come up with brand new ideas, that's a job for qualitative methods every single time.
All right, so now that we know how to look outward for good information, we have to tackle something a little trickier, maybe a lot trickier, looking inward. We've got to confront these hidden forces inside our own minds that are constantly shaping our thoughts. This is so important to just accept. Having biases doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you a person. It's a feature, not a bug of the human brain. And honestly, the most powerful thing you can do is just admit it. Yep, they exist in me too.
And get this, here's the payoff for just admitting that. Studies have shown that the simple act of being aware of your cognitive biases can cut down your decision-making errors by over 70%. Just think about that for a second. That is a massive improvement for just a little bit of self-awareness.
Okay, so let's name a few of these usual suspects. First up, confirmation bias. This is a big one. Let's say you're really excited about a new tech company. This is the bias that makes you only read the articles that say it's the next big thing, while you totally ignore the financial reports that are waving huge red flags. Next up, we've got anchoring bias. That first article you read about the company said it could be worth $1 billion someday. Well, now your brain is anchored to that number. Every other piece of info gets compared to that first one, even if that billion-dollar figure was just pure speculation. Then you've got availability bias. You just saw a news story about a similar company that made its investors rich overnight. That story is so vivid and fresh in your mind that you start to overestimate the chances that this one will succeed too, conveniently forgetting the statistics that, well, most of them fail. And finally, the classic sunk cost fallacy. So a year goes by, the company's not doing so hot, but you've already sunk 10 grand into it. So you start thinking, well, I've already put so much in, I can't back out now. And you throw more money at it, chasing what you've already lost instead of looking clearly at its future. So how in the world do we fight back against all these mental traps? We need a system, a framework. So let's talk about a really powerful and practical tool called the RED model. I love this because it's so simple. RED. First, you recognize the assumptions hiding in the argument. Second, you evaluate the arguments themselves. And third, you draw conclusions based only on the actual evidence. Let's break that down. Let's really focus on that first step because honestly, it's the whole foundation. Recognizing assumptions is all about asking one simple question. What are we just taking for granted here? So, back to our startup idea. A huge assumption might be, oh, of course everyone is going to want this new technology. But is that actually true? And this right here gets to the absolute heart of it. Most bad decisions aren't because of bad logic. They're because the logic was built on a shaky foundation of assumptions no one ever bothered to question. So once you've recognized an assumption, you move to step 2. You evaluate the arguments. You hunt for real evidence. Are there market studies? Is the timing right? Then, and only then, after all that work, you draw a conclusion. Maybe the risk is too high. Maybe it's worth a shot. That's the red model in action. It's a clear path through the mess. Okay, to really take our toolkit to the next level, we need to understand the 2 different gears or operating systems that our brain is constantly using to process everything. This idea comes from the amazing work of a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman, and it's pretty easy to grasp. System 1 is your fast, gut reaction, emotional autopilot. It's always on, running in the background. System 2, that's your slow, deliberate, analytical, manual pilot, and it takes real effort to turn it on.
This table breaks it down perfectly. You know, System 1 is fantastic for simple, everyday tasks, but it's super vulnerable to all those biases we just talked about. System 2 is logical, it's thorough, it's perfect for big, complex problems. But it's also lazy. It gets tired easily, and our autopilot is always trying to jump in and take the wheel back.
All right, let's land the plane. It's time to bring everything we've talked about together into one cohesive toolkit. We've looked at how to get information, how to spot our own biases, a framework to cut through the noise, and the 2 mental systems doing all the work. Let's wrap it up. So if you remember anything, remember this. Great critical thinking isn't one single skill. It's a bunch of good habits working together. It's about blending the what you get from data with the why you get from people. It's having the humility to know you have biases and to challenge them. It's using a simple, solid framework like the red model to guide your thinking. And it's knowing when to slow down and switch from autopilot to manual control. I'll leave you with this challenge. The best way to actually get better at this stuff is to start using it right now. So think about a belief you hold or a big project you're on. What is the single biggest assumption that everything else is built on? Find it, and then challenge it.